Should be right together.
Morning.
Morning all. Righto, let's kick off with apologies.
Through Mr. Chair, I have an apology from Councillor Watts.
Righto. Would someone like to move that be accepted? Moved by Councillor Abbott. I will second. All those in favour? Carried. Would someone like to move the adoption of the previous meeting minutes as being a true and accurate reflection of what occurred then? Move Councillor Campbell. I'll second. Any comments? Sorry, I saw that before Sue put her hand up. So all in favour is carried. Any declarations of interest for this meeting? There being none. Public participation. Has everybody read the two emails that were received this morning from Peter Brayley and Jamie Munn? Sorry, I've got a cat. And Jamie Munn that arrived this morning. Has everybody read those? Do we need to read those out as in course of this meeting, or can they just be tabled in the minutes, or what do we do there?
Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest table them because I went out this morning and inspected the site, and I believe that those matters have been addressed.
Righto.
I'm not sure, though, through you, Mr. Chair, whether we should be. I think we should read them out.
Okay, well, I'm happy to do that. Or is it my place to do that?
Yeah, through the chair, I recommend that we read them out for the benefit of.
Righto. Will I do that?
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all. By all means, read them out.
Righto. I will start with the letter from Jamie Munn, which was sent to Priscilla Rowland yesterday, Monday, May the 11th, via email. Priscilla, as per my discussion with Matthew Pringle this afternoon, I unfortunately cannot dial in to tomorrow's meeting due to work commitments. On review of the attached document, Development and Environment Services Committee Agenda, 12th of May 2020, I wish to comment on the following that I had previously submitted in 2018. And obviously that submission is part of our papers. Point one is security. Agree, a large fence has been in place. 2, replacement of trees. I thought in the current climate that the local council would be supporting and enforcing carbon footprint measures. 3, dust. This is my overall major concern. Since this land was cleared and the base submitted, the levels of dust generated that encroaches into our back veranda at 12 Phillip Street, Scone, is unacceptable. With this starting as soon as the site started being developed. I do not believe, even with the proposed surface mentioned in the report, that it will not generate any dust. Any compacted gravel or stone material generates dust. We have stopped utilising our clothesline due to this over the past 2 years, plus having a teenage son that is asthmatic. I feel this needs to be reviewed and an acceptable long-term solution be introduced. I back my above statements around the source of this dust due to the following comments. Spare building block across from my residence, approximately 14 Phillip Street, has been built on with family homes. Spare block 2 doors down, 8 Phillip Street, has now been built on, as previously mentioned. Dust started and has continued since the removal of fauna and introduction of hardstand, well, he's written handstand, but I think he means hardstand material on the block starting in 2018. Since the reduction of traffic in this area of late, I had hoped to see a reduction in dust leaving the site, but to no avail. Point 4 is environment control. The proposed application is for vehicle and farm machinery display. I ask, will these machines require washing, cleaning? If so, what are the pollution controls for this water runoff? If this land is to have a further hard stand added as pre-proposal, where will this runoff move to? Neighbour backyards, question mark. And the last point is light pollution. Agree if no additional light is to be added as per the attached report states. In conclusion, I do wish to mention I am not against progression development of our town, but do not feel this should be at the determinant
Detriment.
to any current ratepayer. Please do not hesitate to call me if you wish to discuss further. Jamie Mann. And then there was a second submission from Peter Brayley, who is the part of the application. Again, this was sent to Priscilla Rowland today, the 12th of May. Good morning, Priscilla. Thank you for your time yesterday. Would you please read this email to the D&E committee members? He's written A, but he means E. Request for no further landscaping. As discussed, the council upgrade of Sherwood Street and Muffet Street intersection, Casmasco Investments voluntarily contributed concrete pipes and other material to allow the extension of the head wall for the existing under road drainage valued at approximately $3,500. This allowed the widening of Muffet Street to incorporate a footpath to improve not only visual amenity, but public safety, as there was no footpath available on either side of the road previously. Our compulsory contribution to curb and gutter and a further 40 metres of curb and gutter, approximate, at full cost to us, also contributed to the improvement of Sherwood Street. These contributions were in excess of $20,000. This improved streetscape, access and safety for the general public, as there was minimal gain to our project. The proposed area is fenced with school-type security fencing on external perimeters. This has an improved visual impact rather than standard industrial-type fencing, and the request not to increase landscaping, which may impede displays, has been requested. The upgrade of Sherwood Street mentioned above has greatly improved the visual amenity of this intersection. Wideland have scaled back their operations in Scone since this development application was submitted, which has meant a reduction in vehicles on site and the amount of vehicle movement required. I feel the concerns raised by Mr. Munn in the letter dated 27th of the 3rd, 2018 have been addressed in council's current conditions, and the area has pervious gravel covering which does not produce dust. Condition 7. I would like to see this condition removed. To date, the current activities have not produced any adverse effects with adjoining landholders, and as no new buildings are proposed, there will be no solar glare from materials used. Presently, this development will be one of the best industrial buildings available for lease in Scone. I will be available by mobile should there be any questions or concerns that councillors may require clarification. And he goes on to give his number. Right, so those are the two submissions. So as per normal, I will hand over to Matt, and perhaps at the end of your summation, you might just talk through those submissions and your opinion of those, please. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Okay, so this development application 35/2018 is for the storage and display of motor vehicles and farm machinery at number 2 Muffet Street in Scone. The application was received by council back on the 5th of May 2018. It's being referred to the D&E committee and council because it does not comply with the Upper Hunter DCP, and one submission has been received. You may recall there was a previous development application, 83 of 2016, for drainage works in a hard stand area on this site that was considered by the D&E committee. That application was subsequently withdrawn by the applicant back in October of 2016. After that date, we became aware that the site was being used for the storage of motor vehicles and farm machinery. We spoke to the owners of the property, and they subsequently submitted a development application, or this DA, to regularise the use of the land for that purpose. It's taken some time to process. We've been going back and forth over that time, requesting further information and getting additional information from the applicant. If I just go through the proposal, basically it's just an open area, a gravelled area that's used for the storage of these vehicles. I understand this happens before they go off site to a vehicle sale yards. A vehicle sales yard, I guess it is. The use is ancillary to the existing use of the shed on the site, which is used for motor vehicle, I guess, repairs, and also setting up the motor vehicles for sale. The DA does not comply with the DCP with respect to off-street parking and landscaping. So the DCP requires vehicle sales and hire premises to provide 0.75 spaces per 100 square metres of site area, and therefore a total of 29 parking spaces are required. And in this case, that number of spaces is not provided on the site. However, given the type of use of the site, we've satisfied that a variation of the DCP is acceptable under the circumstances. There's also a requirement in the DCP about landscaping as well, that the applications are required to be accompanied by a landscaping plan and report showing how the development won't have a detrimental impact on the amenity of the area. So that information didn't come in. The application was placed on public exhibition between the 15th of March and the 29th of March, with an advertisement placed in the news, and we received one submission in response to that public exhibition period, and that was from one of the neighbours adjoining the property. And we've just heard some of the issues that they raised in their submission. So concerns in relation to dust generation from this site, removal of trees, potential for light pollution, and concerns about some of the environmental controls on the property to prevent pollution of water and pollution of the site. The land is zoned IN1 general industrial and RE2 private recreation. You may recall there's a strip of land at the back of this property adjoining the Phillip Street lots that is zoned RE2. That was put in there many, many years ago to provide a buffer between the industrial zone land and the residential land. The proposed use is permissible within the IN1 zone, but it's not permissible in the RE2 zone. So we've done our detailed assessment of the application. We've recommended approval, subject to a number of conditions of consent. We would like to add, just in view of the concerns raised by the submitter and the additional submission that was just read out, we would like to add another condition to the conditions of consent. So if we look at the conditions of consent on page 5. So we'd like to add another condition 4A, or we could renumber the conditions, but I think condition 4A would be, I'll just read that out, just one second. So condition 4A would be that by 31st of August 2020, all areas to be used for the storage and display of motor vehicles and farm machinery shall be sealed or covered with a coarse gravel, in brackets minimum diameter of 70 millimetres to a depth of 100 millimetres. It appears that part of the site isn't covered in the gravel. So if we impose this condition, that would require all areas used for this purpose would be covered in gravel. The other option obviously is to seal the site. There'd be significant costs in doing that, and there would also be significant volumes of stormwater generated from that as well, that surface, if it was sealed, which could create additional issues that we'd have to deal with. So we feel that the use of a coarse gravel with no fines should address the dust issues. The other condition the committee may want to consider, adding is a, so I'm just trying to bring up my conditions again, is a condition that no vehicles or machinery shall be washed. Actually, I don't think there's a condition there already about that. No vehicles or machinery shall be washed on the site. All washing of vehicles and machinery shall be undertaken within an approved wash bay. With no wastewater shall be disposed of on site. So as I said, we've recommended approval subject to the conditions of consent you can see in the report. That's it from me.
I'll go around in my usual manner. I'll start at the bottom of my screen with you, Councillor Campbell, if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a call too that the apology be given for the Mayor. He was not able to attend this meeting today, so could that be recorded? Look, Matt, thank you for that. I did inspect the site this morning, and those two recommendations that you put forward are ones that I was going to suggest anyway. I do believe that if you were to look at the northern section of the area where it is properly covered with that particular material, that blue metal material, there is no possible way that dust could be generated from that area. But I did notice that there were other areas there that were only partially covered and which I believe need to be covered in that way with that material. Now on the southern side, I think that's it's an RE2, isn't it? Am I correct in that assumption? That's where the area is not covered with any material, and perhaps that some of the dust could come from there. But I'd like to suggest that the dust shouldn't be used as really a deterrent to this project, because in the last 2 years we have had enormous dust storms, and anybody to suggest that they could keep dust out of their houses it's fanciful, because our house and all the houses around were just covered in dust, which were generated from areas around our place and also further west. So I don't think that is an issue, because that is just totally related to dust generated from the drought. But I do agree that if those areas of that DA are covered in that blue metal, that will not be an issue for the residents.
Are you done, Councillor Campbell?
I am, thank you.
Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you very much. I am very concerned, and I take on board all Mr. Munn's concerns, and want to know about replacement of trees and the fact that there's been a request for no landscaping. And as Mr. Munn raises, in this time of climate change and losing of trees, shouldn't we be looking at making sure we put more trees in, and definitely landscaping? So I also understand his concern about dust, and I don't think we can condition away the dust concern with our conditions at the moment. But I just would like to ask about the washing of the vehicles. So that's not going to be done on site, is that correct, through you, Mr. Chair? Mr. Pringle, is that correct, that the washing of the vehicles will not be done on site? They'll be washed somewhere else, will they? You can come back and answer that one. Then the other thing that worries me is it doesn't comply with the Upper Hunter Development Control Plan. So I don't understand, if it doesn't comply, why we're recommending approval. I'm concerned that it's taken 2 years. Why has it taken so long? I'm also concerned that it was operating without consent in its operations, and we've taken a firm view about this sort of thing happening in our shire. I remember I think it was Stone & Co in Marunda. I mean, they eventually got shut down. I'd like to know about the drainage works that have happened, that have been done, and were they done with approval? Yes, generally, and also I believe there's a watercourse in the block of land and how that's impacted, and that existence of a watercourse has had an impact on other development applications that were refused because of the watercourse. So I'd like to know how that plays into this particular situation. And in relation to the state environmental planning policies on page 11, where I'll just go to page 11 so I can read it out, where it mentions about a consent authority must not consent to the carrying out of any development on land unless it is considered whether the land is contaminated. That was A. And B, if the land is contaminated, it is satisfied that the land is suitable in its contaminated state. So I wonder if we've done that as well. And I am not I'm not in favour either of removing condition 7, which I don't understand why we would remove condition 7. You don't need me to read it out, or maybe I should read it out. So condition 7 is at all times the implementation and intensity of this development shall not adversely affect the amenity of the neighbourhood by reason of excessive levels of illumination, internal or external, solar glare arising from the building materials utilised in any construction processes or fit out, the emission of noises, noxious fumes, odours and waste. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Matt, would you like to respond to the issues that Councillor Abbott has raised, please?
Yeah, through you, Mr.
Before
Chair.
you start, can I just, as a matter of course, I'll move that the apology of Councillor Bedggood be accepted. Have a seconder? All in favour? Great, thank you. Just add that to the minutes, please. Over to you, Matt.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The first question, the washing of vehicles. So I'm recommending that we impose a condition of consent requiring all washing of vehicles to be undertaken within an approved wash bay. So that can be on site, but any wastewater would be contained in that wash bay, could be treated, recycled, and any wastewater coming out of that would be connected to council's sewerage network and be subject to a trade waste agreement. That's their choice if they wish to use that wash bay. Otherwise, there'd be no washing of vehicles on the site. In relation to the drainage, the concerns about the application taking so long. Yes, it has taken approximately 2 years. As I said at the start, that was because we were waiting on information from the applicant. It took some time to come in. There was also a change to the application as well during the assessment process, where originally the development was proposed over the entire site, or the DA nominated the entire site, and that application ended up being amended, so it was only part of the site, which is the area which is currently being used for vehicle storage. It doesn't include some additional land to the east. So I think if you have a look at the aerial photograph on page 9 of the report, you can see it shows the entire site. The area that is subject to this application now is only on the corner of Muffet Street and Sherwood Street, towards the western end of the site. The contamination issue, as we've said in the report, given that there will be there's pretty much no disturbance of the land itself, it's just covering the land with gravel and the use of the land for storage of vehicles. We felt that the site, even if it is contaminated, is suitable for the use, for the intended use. So we don't have any concerns with that. And the use is also ancillary to an existing use on the site. So that use is continuing. The condition 7, I agree with Councillor Abbott that should be retained. I think that's just a standard condition. The concerns about the drainage works with the drain running through the site. I understand the owners did do some minor works to that drain. They tidied that drain up and laid gravel in it to improve the flow. There was some works outside the site in Muffet Street that council undertook, and I understand that the owners of this site contributed towards those works, the drainage works, so they were done with approval. I think, I'm not sure if there are any other questions there, Councillor Abbott, I may have missed.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, I think that was oh, with the landscaping, why no landscaping? Why? I mean, I understand that there's a visual display issue from the proponent, but we should be landscaping. We can landscape and still display vehicles. And also there was a mention of fauna being removed. What fauna was removed as well? What does that mean? I wasn't entirely clear about that. Somewhere I read that fauna was removed. It could have been in Mr. Munn's email or in a submission, but I'm not entirely, I can't remember. But yeah, so what fauna and about the landscaping?
Yeah, through the chair, it was in Mr. Munn's submission. I believe that he meant flora, I would suggest, rather than fauna. I understand there were a couple of trees that were on the site previously that have been removed. And you can see on the aerial photograph on page 9 that there are some trees on the site which are no longer there. So I would suggest that that's what Mr. Munns was referring to. In terms of the landscaping, again, it came down to the type of use of the land. It's for storage and display of vehicles. And I guess that's the reason why we didn't require a landscaping or any additional landscaping in this case. But again, it's up, if the committee feels that there should be landscaping, then the committee could, if it wishes, could impose a condition requiring landscaping or requiring the submission of a landscape plan.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I also just like to raise Mr. Munn's concern in his email about their clothesline, that effectively is now inoperable because of dust. So there obviously is dust that's significantly impacting on a family's life. And the fact that his son is asthmatic, and that's clearly of concern. So, I mean, dust is an issue, and whether we have dust in this valley or not, when we're adding to dust levels, we need to be really careful. And so if Mr. Munn, who's living there, has identified that it's a problem to his son's health and the fact that they can't use the clothesline, I think that's gravely concerning. Thank you.
Through the chair, just in relation to the dust issue, as I've recommended that additional condition requiring all areas to be covered with the coarse gravel, we feel that that would address any dust issues on that site. There is potential for the dust to be coming from the land further to the east, areas that are exposed. But as I said, we feel that the use of the coarse gravel should address that dust issue.
Thank you. And one through you, Mr. Chair, the other thing that I don't think you did touch upon, Mr. Pringle, was the fact that they have been operating without consent.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. And as soon as we became aware of that, we did approach the owner, and they, as I said, subsequently submitted a development application for our determination. Normally, you wouldn't proceed with any enforcement action or any compliance action while there's a DA pending. And so we're at this point now where we have to make a decision on this application, whether it be approved. And then I guess, if it is approved, then the use becomes legalised. If it's not approved, then I guess we have an unlawful use on that land, and we'd have to consider our options at that point.
All done, Councillor Abbott? Great. Okay, well, it's over to me. I thoroughly agree with the opinions expressed about clause 7 so far, and agree that that should stay in. Regarding the car parking, I'm happy for the DCP to be put aside on that one. Can I just confirm with you, Matt, that any subsequent businesses that were utilised this site, they would have to submit a DA for a change of use, etc., wouldn't they? So that any car parking needs for a subsequent unit could be revisited at that point, couldn't they?
That's correct. That's correct. If there's any change of use, they would need to lodge a development application normally. Otherwise, somebody could pick this, if it is approved, somebody could rely on this consent to use the site for the same use again.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Could you hold that to the end?
I can.
Then come back. I just want to run through my notes so far.
Yes, well, you have. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, landscaping, I'm less comfortable with, particularly as on page 7 under the, on page 12 under the heading of suitability of site. We do say that proposed landscaping will provide a visual screen to mitigate impacts, and yet we are accepting that there will be no landscaping under this recommendation. However, I do accept the comments of Mr. Brayley that the streetscape, particularly on Sherwood Street, has been improved by the work that they have done. I fully agree with the introduction of clause 4A as, or condition 4A, sorry, as identified, as read out earlier. And I also support the use of or the implementation of a condition that no vehicles be washed unless on site, unless in an approved wash bay. These vehicles are going to be washed either here or at Wideland, Scone. So the water, you know, that water is going to end up in the thing. And if we have control over its cleanliness and suitability for the system, then I think that is a good thing. So I'm happy with that. What else have I written down here? So yes, those are my thoughts. Councillor Campbell, you had an additional comment you wanted to make.
Yeah, look, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I really don't believe that the dust issue, once this it's covered with this material, and I suggest that Councillor Abbott, you go and look at the northern section of that development where it's completely covered. There's just no possible way dust can come out. However, I do understand the concerns, and I'm wondering whether on that southern side, which I understand will joins Mr. Munns, that suitable trees, the short growing trees, could be planted along that southern fence. The difficulty being with the dust, he suggests he can't use his clothesline. Well, what about his neighbours right alongside them? I mean, they use their clotheslines too. But be that as it may, if there were suitable shrubs built on that southern side, it wouldn't take away very much area from the proposed project, but it also would perhaps may help Mr. Munns to understand what we're trying to do. So I would be happy if that could be included, that suitable growing shrubs no more than, I don't know, 1.5 metres or something like that were able to be planted along that southern section. One further thing I will say regarding Wideland. Now, Wideland is an agricultural company that has, over a period of 2 years, purchased many other dealerships. So I'm just don't know whether we can quite condemn them for taking up such a length of time, because they weren't all purchased at one stage. So there was a considerable amount of money that had to be found to purchase these dealerships, and I suggest that in the current economic environment over the last 2 years, that it's been quite a project and quite an economic problem for them. Thank you.
It's just to clarify, Councillor, Wideland is not the applicant. Camasco is the applicant. Wideland is the user.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
On the issue of dust, I think the imposition of condition 4A will address some of the, or actually all of the dust problems of this site. There is considerable dust, as I think the director pointed out, generated elsewhere in the industrial park. I could name other businesses, they would, but probably won't, but they would include our own council's own sale yards. And related vehicle movements there and elsewhere in the industrial area. If you want to, if the committee is of a mind to bring in a landscaping condition that will help mitigate dust on the southern boundary, I'm very happy to do that. I'm sure Councillor Abbott would have some views on that as well. I'll probably let you speak to that, Councillor.
Yes, obviously landscaping is always important, and we should be doing that anyway. But I'm troubled by this application. So whilst I think that is a good idea. If this is to go through, then definitely we need more landscaping. But if it doesn't go through, well, we'll see. So yes, I don't know. What would you like me to say to that, Mr. Chair? Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure what else to say. Yes, I think landscaping is a good idea, but at this point in time, I'm not in favour of this development application. Thank you.
Sorry, I had myself on mute then when I was trying to answer your question. Just to say, no, I was thinking, but along the Councillor Campbell's lines of introducing a condition of some landscaping along the southern boundary, which might go some way to mitigating any other dust.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to be careful about the landscaping down there too, that we don't become too onerous. I think that the trees and the shrubs that I'm suggesting would mitigate any potential problem. But I think if we just got to get put more onerous conditions on it, I think I'm proposing them to be purely the shrub type shrubs that are grown at suitable height along that southern boundary and nothing more. I think we've got to be careful here.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. Matt, have you any thoughts on that and knock up a condition, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think if we have a condition that says something along the lines of by 31st of August 2020, the applicant shall submit a landscaping plan to council for approval. The landscaping plan shall include areas of landscaping along the southern boundary of the site, and shall incorporate trees and shrubs with a mature height of, I would think sort of 3 metres.
Yeah.
Would that then the leaves, etc., go into Mr. Munns's yard, which would cause him a problem? I'm not happy about having 3 metres. They have to be lower than that, maximum of 2 metres. Otherwise, it could perhaps cause Mr. Munns some problems.
All right. Well, I guess that's something that could be. I'm not sure. I would have thought something a little bit higher to provide a bit of a visual screen as well, but I'm not sure what's behind the neighbouring property. There could already be some structures there anyway. Let's have a quick look on the aerial photo.
Yeah, I think 3 metres is fine by me.
Right.
Righto. So, what number was the wash bay? Did you give that condition a number?
That would be.
Is it a new?
That would be at all times. That could go as condition 12 at the end. 12.
The landscaping condition would be 13, I'm presuming.
Sorry, the landscaping?
Yeah.
Landscaping condition, you would probably make, so 4A would be the additional gravel. So 4B would probably be the landscaping. It's a condition that must be complied with within a certain time frame.
Right. Okay, well, apologies for the animal noises. They're coming from me or my pets. So I'm happy to move the recommendation, an amended recommendation with new conditions 4A, 4B and 12. Do I have a second?
Okay, I'll second that, yeah.
All those in favour?
Yes.
Against?
Me. Do I need to say why I'm against?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
You've expressed that well enough already. Which brings us to councillor questions. I'll go the other way this time. Councillor Abbott, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. With respect to the Depop and being on, I can talk, can I ask that sort of a question? Is that okay?
I couldn't hear the start. of
Oh,
it.
the Depop. It's in relation to the Depop that's out on public exhibition at the moment. Can I ask a question about that?
Is it pertinent to this committee or?
Only well, basically in relation to the fact that people are finding it hard to find. I've had that comment. So it's probably pertinent to every single committee that council runs, because at the moment we have this small window of opportunity for the public to make a comment, and they're finding it very hard to find. So, so yes, what can we do about that, essentially? Thank you.
Right, Councillor Campbell.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I don't have anything at this stage. Thank you. Any
No.
questions, rather? Yeah, go on.
Well, no, nor do I. On regards to Depop, I don't understand it. It should be readily accessible from the website, and there are hard copies available at the neighbourhood centre and other places, I believe.
But some of these places are closed at the moment. So where else? I mean, where are we actually advertising where it is? Because people are finding it hard on our own council website. It's not intuitive to find it.
Could you maybe contact the general manager and the comms team and find
Okay.
that, and maybe they
Through
need
the chair,
to improve communication around that.
through the chair, I'll take that on board and we'll
Thank you.
get someone to look at that.
Thank you very
It's
much.
not really relevant to this committee, but I'll pass that on.
Thank you.
Righto, thank you all very much for your time and input. Much appreciated as ever.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.